Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for everyone that is watching. This is the Maine First Project podcast, starring the Honorable Larry Lockman and Honorable Heather Siraki and Mr. James Mosher, and me as the moderator, Zach Gelpy. So we have a really interesting topic today: the brain drain of Maine. The Maine brain drain, folks. It is an actual pretty big issue here in the state of Maine, where a lot of our young folks are leaving. And the question is, why are the young folks leaving here in Maine? So I want to get everyone's overall reaction and thoughts on why folks are leaving. Larry, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, the demographic winter is here. We have more deaths than births in Maine now. And we are the oldest state in the nation.
Yeah.
Just from my own personal life experience, 25 years ago, there were 8,000 mill jobs in the Penobscot Valley between Bucksport and Lincoln. I know because I had one of those jobs. I was an hourly production line employee at the Passadumkeag Stud Mill. It was a good job with excellent benefits. Those 8,000 jobs in the mills, paper, pulp, and lumber mills, supported at least 3 times that many jobs outside the mills. Loggers, truckers, diesel mechanics, part suppliers, mom and pop restaurants, convenience stores, and times were good. In fact, I think in Millinocket at the time there were 4,400 jobs in the 2 Millinocket mills. Everybody who graduated from the high schools in Millinocket could go to work the next day at the mill in Millinocket. Well, those mills gradually began closing until just 5 or 6 years ago there were 0 jobs left, all of them gone. And all of the jobs that they supported outside the mills gone with them. And it's devastated those communities. So why would young people hang around, even if they had family roots in the area? If there's no work, you're not going to hang around and start a family. So that's the principal reason they've left. And I guess the other point I would make is that the people who are responsible for this, the loss of all those jobs, are the left-wing progressives who have had virtual one-party control of state government for about a half a century.
Yeah.
And they consistently did things that drove up the cost. Companies ended up leaving and the jobs left with them. So I guess my first observation would be, you don't want to rely on the advice of the people who created this problem to solve it. And their solution to the problem isn't to revitalize the forest products industries or get government off the backs of these companies, whether it's workers' comp or taxes or the cost of power or anything else. Their solution is wide open door immigration and bring in refugees and asylum seekers to strengthen the workforce. That's their solution. So I guess
my question here, Larry, for you, if that's, all well and good that, bringing in a workforce, some might even argue that might be a good thing. I wouldn't say that's in this podcast, but, anyone here. But what industry would take them in is my question. If the main industry, pardon the pun, northern Maine and in Maine in general ceases to exist, what has replaced it? Is there anything?
Really, no, just the big box stores and government jobs, you know, even when I worked in the mill in Passadumkeag, even back then, the largest employers in any of those small towns was the local school district.
Yeah.
Those are government jobs. And so there was nothing to replace it. And the same thing with farming, fishing, and forestry, our three bedrock industries, have just been hammered by policymakers in Augusta and in Washington. And so I believe that's the root of the problem. If you want to bring if you want to make Maine a good place to live and make a living, you got to have jobs. And as Governor LePage used to say, capital goes where it's welcome. Or how does he say it? It goes where it's welcome and stays where it's appreciated.
Right.
Did I picture that, Heather? How did Paul LePage?
No, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
So Heather, you know, to go to you, what is your reaction? You know, why, just in a cursory view, why you know, kids or young people in general are leaving the state?
I think there are a number of factors. With my three sons in the local public school system, we'll start there. Just among their peers, there's a feeling among the kids that Maine has little opportunity and is small, tired, going nowhere. So let's get out. And they really don't want to go to school even in the state of Maine. So there's this push from among the kids themselves that they want to go to school someplace else, not in Maine.
Oh.
And that's reinforced by the guidance counselors who like to be able to brag that a large percentage of the students go to school, but there's also some sort of an incentive to introduce them to colleges that are even in the Carolinas, not just looking at schools in Rhode Island, Connecticut, New England schools. There's a push to expose the kids and get them out to other places. And when they get to college, there's a big push for them to have an international experience. They have to be global thinkers and global workers. So the push from within the school system permeates to the student body and makes the kids feel restless, and Maine is not a place they're interested in saying. They might come back, is what they're thinking, but they really want to go and explore the world. So there's that piece to it. As a taxpayer, I could see that we are paying a lot of money to educate our students K through 12 or pre-K through 20. And I'm not seeing the return on that investment. If we're paying all this money in the public school system to get them educated and would like to have them stay here and go to work here and be committed to the state of Maine that's just given them this wonderful free public education, what we're really doing is providing this product that's being exported to other states. They're benefiting from the investment we're making, and we're not seeing a return on that investment at all. If our students aren't staying here or have no intention of coming back or have an intention of coming back, but then can't find jobs, it's sort of a negative. It grows worse and worse with every year. It seems that we have lack of jobs in both white and blue collar sectors. We have the high taxes, and I asked one of my sons, who is working in New Hampshire now, what would it take for you to come back to Maine? And he said, Mom, I'm never coming back to Maine. He said, it's boring. He has this view of Maine as just being really staid and not exciting. And there's so much more to do where he is. And that is unfortunate. One of my sons does live in Maine, work in Maine, and he loves Maine. He's a quiet sort, and he doesn't like a lot of traffic. So he's taking a huge financial hit to be here with his skill set, but he's willing to make that sacrifice as far as income goes, because he likes the quiet lifestyle, and he likes that he can get to work in 10 minutes and not deal with lots of traffic. And so for that kind of kid, Maine is a place that fits for them. But if you want more excitement, the students today just don't view Maine as exciting enough. And then when they start on their careers and they move to other states, and they sit down with their accountant and try to figure out, should I move back to Maine or should I move here? And they may be married, they may even have a child, and they're thinking, okay, I really want to move back home to Maine. But when they sit down and crunch the numbers, it just doesn't make financial sense to them when they see the high rate of taxes, the very high cost of living, the high energy costs, the weather. They factor all these things in, and it just doesn't make sense to them.
And if that's true in Cumberland County,
Yes.
the lack of really good job opportunities and higher paying jobs and the lack of excitement or culture, imagine what it's like north of Bangor.
Right. Yeah. I definitely see that. Well, James, what's your thoughts?
Well, there's so much to grab on. As far as what Larry said, first of all, worldview does matter. And if we learn anything from this specific conversation, the progressive worldview is the cause, the source. Larry mentioned the mills. I did some research. The Verso paper mill in Bucksport closed in 2014. And I remember when I read that article, it was validation. There were a number of factors. It was a BDN article that were listed for the closing. Obviously, the paper industry has changed because of the onset of technology and the rest of it. But that wasn't the biggest reason. The biggest reason was property taxes. If I remember correctly, it was like 44% of the annual budget for the town was paid from the Verso mill, which the budget I think was like $12 million. So what's that? You know, about $5+ million that this company was forced to shell out. On top of that, you had rising energy costs that they just couldn't afford to pay the bills at the end of it. So when you create an environment that's caustic, the idea that they have to pay their fair share, well, what's going to happen is anybody that wants to stay in business is going to go where they can. It's viable. That's just it's not greed. It's sustainability. We want to remain here, and survival. When that happens, there are jobs here. The question, and I think Heather's point about the college, when you have progressive teachers, I did looked at the premier colleges of Maine, right? Bates, Colby, Bowdoin. They all have women's gender, sexuality studies majors, and there's one particular course where Colby College in Waterville offers this black, let me see if I can, the black feminist studies, where the majority of the class are learning tap dance and studying black female thought.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Well, this jam plan, I took Critical Race Feminisms and Tap Dance with Professor Sonia Thomas. I found the title of the class particularly interesting because it's tap dance, but it's also in relation to critical race feminisms, and I didn't really know what the connection was. So I figured I'll go for this and see what happens and see how it ties into that.
The idea of it was combining a studio tap dance class, intro to tap dance class, with Black feminist thought and critical race theory. One of the quintessential volumes of Black feminist thought is called All the Women Are White, All the Men Are Black, but Some of Us Are Brave. And I feel like the history of tap dancing really attends to that title.
Now, that may be fine and well. That might be worth somebody's time, but if you want to turn around and stay in Maine, I don't know as if there's much of a demand for tap dancing or the Black, feminist thought, or what the point is, what kind of skill set are you going to have after taking 4 years of this stuff? And I might add, these colleges are about $55,000+ a year, so that's $200,000 you're going to put into a major that you're really not. From what I understand, the market. Here's some of the jobs that are in demand. There's a demand for a skill set for electrical line workers, for nursing, for plumbers, for welders. There is a demand for jobs out there, and nationally, you guys have heard of Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
He said that I think in 2018 there's 6.6 million jobs available, but there's a skill set gap. Well, if we stop telling every kid that they should go on to college and get a liberal arts degree or whatever it is, and start saying, hey, little Johnny, you might want to be a welder, or little Sally, you might check out the nursing profession if you want to stay around here. They make good money. You can make anywhere from $60,000 to over $100,000 a year. You can go to community college. So to answer the question fully here, it's a combination of factors that make a caustic environment. You have to have some kind of marketplace for people to stay and raise families, and there's so many factors related to the progressive worldview that's destroyed. I mean, they've destroyed the family, they've destroyed the educational system. When there's emphasis on transgender studies instead of math and science and engineering, that's part of the problem. The kids at the end, the kids are the ones that are going to pay for all this because they're not prepared for the real world. The world of make-believe might make somebody feel happy for the day, but it's not going to pay the bills.
If you have a 4-year degree in gender studies, you're not qualified to do anything but teach other people useless information or work at Starbucks.
Right.
And then when you need a plumber, we're going to send you a poet.
Yeah.
But again, this thing that guidance counselors in the K through 12 schools, I hear the stories repeatedly, pushing all the kids, even kids who would be inclined to go into the trades, are being pushed. You need to get a 4-year degree and all the debt that goes with it.
Let's start with talking about what you see as the real problem that's cropped up over the past 40 years or so in America. We're doing everything we can to push every kid to go to a 4-year college. What's wrong with that?
So it's not working. I mean, you got $1 trillion in debt on the student loan side. You have a skills gap, something.
Talk about what do you mean a skills gap?
Well, you have right now about 3 million jobs, transportation, commerce, trades that can't be filled.
And this is stuff, anything from carpentry to being an electrician, plumbers,
heating,
construction,
electric. There's a whole truck drivers.
Right.
There's a long welders is a big one. Jobs that typically parents don't sit down and say to their kids, look, if all goes well, this is what you're going to do.
But these are actually also jobs. I mean, not only are they available, but they pay well.
Listen, yes is the short answer, but of course, pay well. It's kind of relative.
Right.
What they are mostly, in my opinion, are opportunities. You know, a good welder right now can pretty much write his or her own ticket. Companies like Caterpillar, Bechtel, you can go down the list. They have had open shortages for decades. And so, you know, I talked to a kid the other day up in Butler, North Dakota. So it's Butler, right? It's cold, but he works on heavy equipment up there. And over $100 an hour, work when he wants, paid for his house in cash, raising a family, no debt. People don't tell his story. Ever.
So that's part of the problem, is that instead we're telling everybody, you know, just you got to get that sheepskin, you got to get the college BA, otherwise you're not going to be happy, you're not going to have any opportunity.
It feels that way to me. Yeah, I mean that was my experience in high school, and I still hear the same platitudes today.